So, we're talking about Phoenix Lights.
Phoenix Lights.
Now, we've already done this video once, but we didn't record it very well, so we've got to do it again. So, any point I might go, we've talked about this. Get confused. But reasons why I want to talk about Phoenix Lights, even though it's history and it's been talked about loads of times, is because I think it's one of those. It's like Roswell, the Tic Tac videos, or the Nimitz thing, the Washington invasion, stuff like this. It's one of those events that's kind of core to what we. It's one of those rare events that we've actually got like really good evidence. You know, like it's not just somebody's. It's not like Betty and Barney Hill, who they just come and go, even though, you know, that may or may be true. They come up and they say, well, this happened to me. This is like, now this happened and thousands of people saw it and we've actually got proof.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Proof of what? We're not 100% sure, but it's proof something happened at least. So.
Yeah. Proof that something flew over the skies, definitely. Yeah.
So March 13th, 1997. That's when this thing happened, right? What times have you got? I've got that it started from 7:30 to about 10:30, but you're saying that you've found sightings a bit earlier than that, didn't you? You found?
So, yeah, roughly between sort of 7:30 and 10:30, but there's reports of it, people seeing things earlier from like 2:30 in the afternoon through to the following morning about sort of 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But the majority, was between sort of between 5:30 and 10:30, I think it was, wasn't it? To be honest.
I think they all. I said this again. I switched everything all the times to the central time. So because I kept getting confused because this thing was seen over a huge area. It was seen over Arizona, Nevada, and the Sonora region of Mexico. So, I mean, we're talking about 300-mile radius sort of thing that this thing was seen. So it jumps across a couple of time zones. So 7:55, and that's a mid-standard time. I've got it that it was seen in Henderson, Nevada, a V-shaped object the size of a 747. That's interesting because I was thinking about there's an event quite local to me. I live near Cosford in England, and there was an event called the Cosford Incident, and it was on the night. It was the same night as the Belgium UFO incident, where an object was seen flying over Belgium, and a couple of F-16s were scrambled to fly over it. Well, it was seen flying over Cosford by some soldiers, some air crew, and they actually said it swept across the runway and was throwing a beam of light across. And then it was seen again over Cannock Chase, which is a nearby wooded area. The guy that saw it said it was a V-shaped object, and he reckoned it was about 200 meters across. But I mean, that would be vast.
Yeah.
But basically, my point is, though, they basically saw the same thing. This is what these guys said they saw: a V-shaped object, huge, silent, moving quite slowly. Exactly what we're seeing during the Cosford incident. 8:15, Polden, Arizona, an ex-police officer, so you'd think trained in observation and blah, 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 saw a cluster of orange lights. So it's a slightly different event. 8:17, Prescott and Prescott Valley, an object was seen. It was described as solid. It blocked out the stars. It actually blocked out the sky. So they could obviously see the 5 bright lights, but then they said it was a solid object, though, that it was actually blocking out the stars. The best sighting seems to be Tim and Bobby Lay, who says they saw it coming over from Prescott Valley. They watched it as it traveled 60 miles until it reached Phoenix. They said it passed virtually right over the top of them, and it was like silent. They didn't see anything, and they describe it again as a V-shaped solid object. Which is, I mean. And that's just a few that I've picked out. That's not. By any means.
No, that's it. Just referring back to that ex-police officer, when he saw it when he was out on the road, he returned home to get his binoculars to have a better view, and then watched it for about 10 minutes as it flew over and disappeared south, sort of Arizona, Phoenix area. But then you've got Dr. Lynn Ketty.
Dr. Lynn Ketty, we'll go with that.
Yeah, Dr. Lynn Ketty.
Saying names and stuff is one of my favourite things to do.
Sometimes.
we did a video on COVID and the Batwoman of Wuhan and how the COVID might be man-made, blah blah blah, and we had a lot of names in that video. Every 2 minutes, it's like, give me a minute. Woo-wee.
Yeah, she's in prison now, isn't she? She's been arrested by the Chinese government.
Oh, geez, I missed that.
Yeah.
For what?
So, yeah. Because she came to the UK, didn't she, to sort of hide, and she did a couple of interviews on This Morning and Loose Women, I think.
Right.
And she then disappeared, and a couple of days ago on the news it said that she was arrested in China.
Or picked up over here, taken back to China and arrested, which is something they like to do as well.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Off topic, but Jesus. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
Google. Yeah. Anyway, back to this. So.
Yeah, that Dr. Lynn, she got some film evidence and photographic evidence a couple of years before, 1995, in the same area, and again the same sort of orb lights that we're seeing over Phoenix, like the Phoenix lights. She was seeing, and some other people were seeing as well a couple of years before. And then obviously after the Phoenix lights, she goes on to make a good film, which was released, I think, last year or this year. Phoenix Lights, The Untold Truth or something.
Yeah.
Which is quite a good watch.
Well, I mean, we've got plenty of eyewitnesses in a way, haven't we? So we know something happened.
10,000 of them.
Yeah, exactly. And we've got some great video. I mean, the famous video with the lights over the mountain range, that's been torn apart over the years, isn't it? And
yeah,
we could talk about that all day, to be honest. Some people have said it's this A10 Warthog put these flares across. They're parachuted, so they hovered for ages and ages. And then when they disappeared, it's disappearing behind the mountain range. Other people have said it's not disappearing behind the mountain range when they compared the two. Some have said the luminosity of the flares is right. Other people have said it's not. We can really talk about that for hours.
You can, but the video evidence shows that it's not flares.
I've never seen flares like that. Also, the other thing I was going to say is I've never known flares to hover that long. I know that it was supposed to be some sort of experimental thing or something. The other thing is A10 Warthogs are insanely loud.
Right here, Jim. Right? Oh, yeah.
Loud, and nobody apparently heard or saw it.
Yeah.
Why was it flying that close to that area? Other people have said they've done the luminosity test and they could be seen for 30 or 40 miles, potentially, these flares. Okay. If that was done, it was incredibly poorly planned operation. And like I said...
Yeah, dangerous as well for a start, because the flares, they don't... because of the phosphorus, they don't stop burning once they hit the ground and stuff like that. So,
I think they would say that I don't think they were launch. If that is honest, genuine, they were supposedly launched and dropped behind the mountain range. They weren't dropped over a populated area. But even that, I would say they're dangerous because people are going to look up and go, "What the hell is that?" and crash their car and do all sorts. That's why we don't do tests near populated areas. They think about these things because there's been accidents before. Yeah. So,
and also the military don't want to give their secrets away to the population of the world.
Yeah, well, exactly. So. But I mean, I don't buy the A10 explanation myself, and also they were really well lined up. They were, the shape and everything.
Just
Yeah.
stayed there like that. Flares, you know, you
They
ain't
look
gonna
weird.
get-
Like I say, they look weird. Flares do look weird. You got to admit that. And those Chinese lanterns that were really popular a few years ago, they look weird. They
But you can tell
trigger.
it's Chinese lantern though. You should have a look at the video I put out last night.
I will do.
It was actually my other half that caught the video on. It was about 11 minutes past midnight on New Year's Day, and
All right.
I said to her, like, do you think it was a Chinese lantern? And she says no, because it was controlled, or it seemed, to be controlled. And her one and only thought is that it was a drone. Sorry, miles away there.
The drone, yeah.
Yeah,
Possible.
very much so.
The first time I saw a Chinese lantern, though, I didn't know what the hell I was looking at. I mean, I'm talking years and years ago. When they first started reappearing in this country, I was looking at it floating across the skyline in where I live, and I was quite a high up position. I'm like, what the bloody hell is that thing? And I didn't know. I found out the next day it was a Chinese that these things existed, and I do remember thinking, well, that's an incendiary device. That seems like a terrible idea. And then they started a few fires and they got banned. So I mean, yeah, I mean, stuff looks weird, particularly on very clear nights like that, but not like that. They don't look like that.
No, and the wind's going to blow each flare as well. You've got 9 flares all coming down at the same time. The wind, they're all going to blow differently. They're not going to, follow the same route unless some miraculous thing that they're all on some sort of line or something and all together. But
no, they stayed too even, didn't they?
Yeah.
We've still got the other explanation. Apparently, the explanation basically goes. The official excuse, I'm going to say excuse, goes that there was 2 events. One is the Warthog dropping the flares, and then there was an earlier event that officially there's no explanation for, but we're going to find his name. Mitch Stanley reckons he got his telescope out and looked at the lights, and he could clearly see that it was a series of planes in formation flying. Yeah. And he says he could clearly see that they were aircraft. I'm going to call BS on that.
Yeah, definitely.
For a couple of reasons. They're not silent. People said these things flew over them and they didn't hear a damn thing. I'm telling you, particularly on clear nights and stuff, prop aircraft, you can hear them from miles away, and it's very distinctive. You know what you're listening to.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever come forward and said, "Yeah, that was us. Sorry, we did that."
Yeah.
We're not talking about one nutter building an obelisk in a desert. We're talking about a group of people. There was no radar, so officially, I'd have thought the government would come out and say, "No, they were aircraft, and we were tracking them." Didn't happen.
Yeah.
And we've got one bloke basically saying this, that, yeah, I am my camera. This smacks to me as a debunker that's gone, I think it's aircraft. And I tell you what, I'll tell people I saw it. Because people do that crap.
Yeah,
I don't know why they do it, but they do.
Yeah, of course.
They haven't got evidence, they make it up.
Yeah, very much true. Yeah.
So I'm not going with the aircraft. I don't believe that for a second.
Not at all. And I've tried to get telescope and binoculars on aircraft before, and it's virtually impossible. You know what I mean? Yeah. So hard to unless you've got a tripod and an excellent zoom, camera and stuff like that. It's.
I think you need to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, I would also argue that those lights were supposedly incredibly bright. People know what aircraft lights look like.
Yeah, of course.
Again, they can look weird in the sky. Aircraft can look odd in the sky. I completely accept that. But they're not so bright that you would immediately go, what the hell is that? I mean, these people are talking about, I'd argue, the bit where they say it blocked out the stars, right? I would say that is possibly because the lights were so bright, the light was stronger than the other stars. I would say that's a possibility.
No,
so you're shaking your head. No.
Yeah,
I would just say it's possible.
Because you've got 10,000 people, all the ones that were all the witnesses that were interviewed or did an interview or anything like that, all say that the light was contained within itself, so there was no glare whatsoever. So you can completely and utterly discount that when it was going overhead, it was blocking out the stars. It was because of the glare. No, not at all.
Well, no, I'm not saying it's because of glare. I'm saying it's because of, and again, I'm not saying this is what I believe. I'm just saying it's a possibility that when you've got a light from a star behind and then a brighter light before, all you can see is the bright light. It swamps. It's too bright. It swamps everything else out, so you can't see the light, the much weaker light behind it. Is what I'm saying.
If the actual Phoenix lights were close together, so each ball of light was quite close together, then possibly. But you got to think that these lights are probably a couple of 100 feet apart. So
the one over the mountain range, most definitely. And we're talking about a vehicle that's 747 size. Some people have said it's bigger. I would say, particularly trying to figure out a silent object and an altitude when you've not got any other points, I would say trying to figure out how big this is, just seeing it like that, is because you're not going to, it's going to be very difficult to try and judge its altitude. And unless you can judge its altitude, you can't judge how big it is. So I would say that some people have argued, well, everyone saw different things and they were seeing different objects, they were seeing different sizes. I would say, so you're probably seeing it at different altitudes. So the size thing, I don't think matters too much when people have said, oh, it's 200 meters across or a mile across, then somebody else says, well, it's only a couple of 100 feet across. I think they're probably seeing it at a different altitude. It would look big or small. Particularly when it's silent as well.
If you think about that, though, because you've got to think logically about all this sort of stuff. So you saying that it's at a different altitude and people saying it and different levels and stuff like that, you've got to remember that most of the people were in a valley, So everyone's on the same sort of level, really.
Yeah.
Let's give or take 100 or so that are going to be, living on the side of a mountain or whatever. And you can clearly see that in the footage, correct me if I'm wrong, but the lights look lower than the surrounding mountains.
I think that's the one.
Same sort of height.
That video, I think we can judge the size of the vehicle. If that's the same vehicle everyone else saw, which is, it's possible that it was a mothership and then other vehicles are seen as well. If it was some sort of alien vehicle or man-made aircraft or something that we don't know about. That's the one we can tell roughly the size though, because we've got reference points. That's my point. We've got a reference point. We can see it moving. I'm talking about the people that are just stood on their streets trying to, and then they're saying how big they think it is. They haven't got a reference point when they're looking up at it, basically to judge the altitude, to judge, and then you can't judge the size. That's what.
Right.
Badly trying to explain. So, I mean, I know from judging, when you're supposed to judge altitude, when you know an aircraft, you need to know what the aircraft is, to try to judge speed, direction, and altitude. And you need reference points. It's quite difficult to do, particularly at night. It's almost impossible to do at night. The other explanation is that it was the TR-6 Telios vehicle. So this is part of the secret space program, which I love talking about because there's almost no evidence for, but people get really excited about. So you're doing I did the TR-3 and the TR-3B and the Black Manta and all these aircraft. But the basic theory goes that these aircraft were what we were doing in the 60s out of the Skunk Works. And and all these aircraft companies they're doing it, Grumman and what have you. So the argument is we've moved on from that now. We've had a TR-4 we don't know anything about. We've had a TR-5 we don't know anything about. And this is the TR-6, the Telios, and it's actually a spaceship. If it is a secret space program, they did a really bad job of keeping it hidden. They accidentally flew over a city. The capital city of a state. So...
Oh, we're here.
Yeah, and then maybe it was the launch. Maybe it was a launch going badly, and it was.
I mean, we've also got to say that it went down the I-17, which is the main sort of motorway of Phoenix and stuff like that. And it's
That's literally the interstate. It's the main road between cities, sort of thing, isn't it? So yeah.
Yeah, and it stuck to that route like a dime, didn't it? Really.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think it was military.
I don't think logically it makes sense, does it really?
No, because for one, where would we keep it? Secondly, for something that big, we just don't have the technology to get it off the bloody ground, yet alone silently as well, and you know, to glide across the sky slower than 30 miles an hour or something. People were saying it's going slower.
Well, I mean, they're talking about anti-grav technology. So, I mean, if that technology does exist, well, I think that technology is possible. I always think the big argument for me is, I wonder whether we've got alien craft, reversed engineered a great deal of that alien craft. But the reason why we don't see it in sort of mainstream, why we're still using rockets and NASA still has a job, is at least in part because maybe we can't power it. So maybe if Bob Lazar's right and 115 is the power source, maybe we can't replicate it. Maybe we can't make that stuff. So maybe we could have one or two, something like a TR6, something like this Teleos, or something like a secret space program that Gary McKinnon talks about.
Yeah.
But we've only got as many as we've been able to scrounge 115. Yeah. So, you know, we've got 3 or 4 UFOs crash. Okay, well, we can build 3 or 4 of our own because we can use the 115 from those. But we can never do more than that because we can't replicate the stuff.
Yeah.
So in that theory, maybe a TR6 was constructed somewhere in Arizona and this was it thing taken off and they just didn't give a crap that people saw it.
Yeah.
Or it was having a problem, it was taken off. Do I believe that? No. It doesn't make sense. They'd launch it much better than that. They wouldn't build it somewhere like that as well. They'd build it in one of the islands. They've got something like Diego Garcia or something like that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't make no chance that they would ever let anybody see this damn thing if it existed. And I don't think it does exist.
Well, if you think back to the 1940s when the Germans obviously were making their Delta wings and stuff like that.
Yep.
And now look at the stealth bombers and, you know, B-2s that we've got and what have you, all wing shaped. A lot of the UFOs that people are seeing today are B-shaped or wing shaped. So it does kind of make sense that maybe we have produced a lot of these wing shaped or V-shaped UFOs or craft. But again, I don't believe that we would have anything as big as what we're seeing over the Phoenix Lights. It just doesn't make sense. It's illogical, really, isn't it? It's
yeah. I mean, if it's a thing, then we are so far beyond where we think we are. I mean, we've been using rocket technology for nearly 100 years now, and it's refined, it's better, it's evolved, but it's really still the same principle that we've been using since the V1.
Still quite true, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't see any real, you know, you've got NASA talk about more experimental vehicles. They're talking about a warp drive vehicle that they was it the Abelgear, something like that, I can't pronounce it, warp drive system, which in theory would work. They said the only real problem they've got is power in it, and that seems to be one of the big problems we have. We could use electromagnetic engines. We know how to do it. We could use ion engines. We know how to do it. We don't know how to power them is the problem, which is why we still use rockets.
Batteries.
We might be a little while off that, but yeah, exactly. You know, unless we get fusion drives or something, I don't think we're going to see. I actually genuinely think if we got some way of safely generating a lot of power in a small way, like a fusion, some sort of fusion reactor, a small fusion reactor, we would see a quantum leap and things like this. We'd see electric engines, we'd see ion engines, we'd see all this sort of thing.
Yeah, just like how
power is the problem.
Yeah, of course. In a way, it's evolution, isn't it? Because you look at the First World War, from weapons and machines we had then, or even 20 years before that, you know, turn of the century.
Horse and cart.
Exactly.
Germany invaded areas in horse and cart. Even in the Second World War, they invaded parts of Poland. They were just horse carriages, on bicycles.
Yeah, that's
So-
it. 20 years, and we've got planes in the air, we've got tanks, we've got massive artillery. In another 15 odd years after that, 20 years after that, we've got Germans bringing out the jet fighters, and just before the end of the war, and
Wasn't it 70 years between the Wright brothers and us walking on the moon? It was almost, I think it was 70 years. It might have even been 60 years. That light's crap today, isn't it?
At least I haven't got your mother walking in.
But yeah, I mean, we're capable of a quantum leap in technology when we have breakthroughs. I do think it's materials at the moment. I think it's stopping us from building something, some power source that we can really do something with, and that's coming on and coming on and coming on. And then and that's what stopped us having fusion reactors that work, right? I think we haven't got the materials to make them out with, but that's improving. And then if we can generate enough power, with enough power, you can do almost anything. With enough power, that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, should we talk about Fife Symington?
Yeah.
Right. Not a name. Not a name. Right. So I genuinely think this guy's fake because it's not a name. Who would call their kid Fife and Mr. Symington? I mean, fair enough, you're stuck with the second name, but don't call them Fife. It's just stupid. But anyway,
Nice, isn't it?
yeah, it's just mean. It's just like, we want our child to be bullied. I will call him Fife. He was the governor. Yeah. He was the Arizona governor anyway, right?
Yeah.
I find this really interesting because I think this tells me a lot about the psychology of disclosure and all this sort of thing, but I'll explain why. So initially he came out and said that he'd seen this and that it was weird. And then 2 days later, he did that press conference when he got one of his aides to dress up as an alien.
He was people for that, didn't he?
Oh, yeah. And then afterwards, he's come out and said he thought it was otherworldly. And I think he wrote a book. And he has actually said he doesn't believe that this was a man-made thing, and he thinks it was something.
Yeah.
Potentially a UFO or something.
Yeah.
So what do you make of that? I mean,
I think that he was pressured into saying what he said on the press conference with his mate dressed up as an alien. And then, obviously, as things quietened down, he realised what had happened. Really, I think, and I'm not putting up for this any longer. And now he's on the other side, isn't he? Yeah.
Actually told the truth. I'd love for him to actually come out and say if he was pressured. I don't think he's ever actually admitted that, but it would be interesting if he said. I'd love to know. But yeah, I mean, it smacks as me as like it reminds me like the Roswell incident. It comes out, told the truth, and then immediately somebody in power went, "What have you done?" You need to. But I talk about the psychology of disclosure. I literally mean that the powers that be, the CIA blokes in their trench coats and the men in black are never going to convince me and you that these things, or at least some of these things, don't exist. Right? We believe aliens are potentially visiting this Earth. We think there's lots of evidence of it, and we're trying to find that truth. 90% of the population don't think like that. Even if they think aliens might exist, they don't really care. And genuinely, you can see that when they all, a few months ago, when they all thought the Goodyear blimp, they all thought they were seeing a UFO.
Oh, yeah.
And they just stood at the side of the road going, "Wow, cool." Something. They didn't really care. They weren't freaking out and setting fire to each other's cars like I think some people think will happen if disclosure happens.
Yeah.
They didn't go berserk. They just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Most people don't really care. And so I think there's an element of that the government know they need to mock the subject, and they need to make, if people think it's silly and it's just something to talk about around the water cooler on a Monday morning back at work, nobody will care.
Yeah.
And that was always a perfect example of this. An incident happened, The whole city was going, Jesus. The governor come out and mocked it. And then everyone went, the majority of people at least went, yeah, well, it was nothing there, was it? It was just the A10 and the flares, and people are just getting overexcited about nothing again. Look at those tinfoil hats.
That's it.
You know?
I think we've got to talk about also the police phone operators as well.
Yes.
So they were getting, there was 15 of them altogether, working in the same building, taking the phone calls, and they get hundreds and hundreds of calls. Said that they've never had any calls like this whatsoever. Nothing was seen on radar either. And also there's police helicopters up as well at the same time. She also, this lady's name is Burley Nanneman as well, okay? She's the head phone operator for the police there. And she
coordinator.
She asked her boss why the newspapers the following day or the day after said that only a few calls had been made into the police station. And her boss turned around to her and said, I've no idea why the newspapers have said that. We know it's not true. That was it. But she quotes, she turned around to her boss and said, oh, the cover-up begins already then. So, and then on May the 6th, so a couple of months after, Frances Barwood, or Ballwood, I think it's Barwood, 1997, she was the Phoenix councilwoman and vice president of, vice mayor of Phoenix. And she went into a meeting and asked a question to the other members of the board about what investigations were being done about the Phoenix lights, and basically she was told that she shouldn't have asked that question because nobody was prepared to give a statement, and she was sort of hushed and said, don't ask questions like that again because nobody's interested.
We ain't going to answer, so don't ask.
Yeah, basically. And she was made fun out of because she asked about it. And she is basically the woman, the one person to get it out there. And that's why we're talking about it now, because of her. If it wasn't her and this other Dr. Lynn, who got the footage before and during and also after, come back in 1998 and then again in 2008, I think it was.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, there was supposedly 2 jets scrambled to go see what all the fuss was about in Phoenix at the time. And there's supposed to be some gun tape footage off of one of these F-15s that were scrambled. I sent you the link, didn't I think.
Yeah, I have seen the footage.
Yeah, it looks, I don't know, it looks a bit weird. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think you can really make any judgment on it because I don't know where the source came from. I do think the objects I've seen, there was lots of objects moving backwards and forwards. At one point, you see a very well-defined triangular object come in from the bottom corner. My instinct is it's probably not genuine.
Yeah.
Or at very least, it's been messed with.
Yeah, it just doesn't. It looks like Afterburner from flipping PlayStation 2 or something.
Yeah.
To be honest,
I mean, this FLIR technology stuff again. Stuff doesn't look real, and stuff does look odd. So it could be. I'd want to see somebody that really knows what they're talking about to look at it. You watch elements of the Tic Tac video and the Nimitz video. I mean, they look weird. But then when you actually get somebody that knows what they're talking about the FLIR and explaining why does it look like this, I can follow it and I can understand.
Yeah.
It doesn't smack as genuine to me.
No, no.
Doesn't mean it's not.
No,
That's my instinct.
Yep, same feelings on that one as well, I think, for me.
Yeah.
Just doesn't, it looks too clear as well, the start. It looks too bright, the contrast is right there, and
I did try to find out where it had sort of originally come from, and I couldn't find out. So that also makes me a bit suspicious. I'd like to know where it came from.
Yeah. And also, there's some pilots and army that were interviewed as well from the base at nearby. There was one pilot. He's now a commercial pilot, but he did. Started in the American Army as a helicopter pilot, and then progressed into the Air Force to be a fighter pilot. He's got like 40 years experience or something crazy like that, and he says that there weren't flares. What was seen was seen, basically. The people what saw this V-shaped craft were seeing the V-shaped craft. So you've got high personnel, military, police officers, doctors, lawyers, normal civilian people, all seeing the same thing, but none of them felt scared either. Most of them all say that more than anything, there was in wonderment about what this huge thing was, and in the interviews where the witnesses were interviewed afterwards, their first initial thoughts wasn't, oh, it's a UFO, it's alien. It was just, my God, look at the size of that thing that's there, and sort of come over quite, sort of awe-inspiring, instead of being like, holy crap, oh, it's snowing again. Sorry.
Hey.
So it's, I don't know, something definitely flew over. Definitely.
This is the thing for me. It's this. The other thing is, remember, the Phoenix is quite close to a couple of very large air bases. The Nevada, this is seen over Nevada, which is obviously near massive air force bases. But people are used to seeing aircraft in the sky. They're used to seeing jets. They're used to seeing military exercises, and this incident stands out. It stands out,
Yeah.
So, what did you think it was? If you had to put, we're not talking putting the house on it or anything, but what is your gut feeling? What do you think happened?
I think a massive craft flew over. I don't think it was military. Far too big to be military. I don't think it was flares.
No.
And it goes with every other single UFO or orb sighting that's ever been. All the way
It's like
back,
I said at the start of the video. Yeah, that there's Cosford incidents and other incidents like it that are word for word the same as this incident. And when you start getting the same thing over and over again, you've got to start wondering: is it more than just people seeing?
Yeah. The only thing that does bother me is that you've got all these petroglyphs and hieroglyphics and cave paintings and stuff like that, and ancient paintwork, and all the texts and everything leading up to like the 20th century. All the UFOs were saucer shapes or oblong, cigar shape, and again, it's snowing quite heavily now. Sorry, but I love the snow. So, what makes me sort of think about it is that it wasn't until the 20th century that people started seeing the triangular wing-shaped UFOs, which the Germans were very keen on sort of building.
Yeah.
But you do have some eyewitness accounts in like the Wild West times and stuff like that, or areas of keep seeing crescent shapes UFOs and things like that. So I don't know. It's tricky, isn't it? It's
I would say that I think there'd be different types of vehicle for different things. So maybe sort of, I mean, I do think there was a big explosion of V-shaped UFOs around the time of the X-Files started, but because it was the F-117.
the X-Files.
People were seeing this and they didn't know what they were looking at.
Yeah.
And so they thought it was something alien. And I'm absolutely certain the Air Force went, yeah, okay. Yeah, that was an alien. It wasn't a secret stealth bomber. Yeah, aliens. And you know that happens. You know this, yeah. They love a bit of misinformation. They love people getting confused. So I would wonder if this was aliens, and I always have to pull myself back because I want it to be. It's always aliens. That's why I have this background. It's my channel's motto. It's always freaking aliens.
Yeah.
But I always have to pull myself back because I think I wanted to believe it, and more, too often there's a boring explanation. If it was aliens, I'm wondering if we saw a mothership, a vehicle that would potentially be the vehicle that travels between stars or dimensions or whatever else. And then the flying saucers or the other vehicles are orbs or whatever else are
scout vehicles,
scouts, drones, whatever else. I don't believe a small flying saucer like we saw, like Bob Lazar saw, is traveling between the stars. I think that's probably unlikely. I think there would be a larger vehicle.
Why then?
I'm not saying it's impossible. If they can travel between stars very, very quickly through wormholes or something else, then maybe a small vessel is actually what you need, because creating a wormhole 100, 200 meters wide is incredibly difficult, but maybe a wormhole 10 or 20 meters wide isn't that hard. If you're talking about that they can travel from star to star very quickly and return, then yeah, a small vehicle, right. If you're on about it takes longer, weeks, months maybe, to travel between stars, maybe you can travel faster than the speed of light, but maybe not that much more, and it still takes a while to get here, you're going to want a larger vehicle, because you're going to want... There's two problems though. Right.
We think as humans, for a start.
We're thinking as humans, right? If the aliens are actually coming here, they're going to want living quarters. They're going to want that sort of thing. They want comfort. Most UFOs probably, well, you would assume so. If they're biological organisms, they're going to require something. You would think. I mean, it's only assumption, but we can only assume based on what we know.
That's the problem that I have with the whole UFO paranormal community. They think like humans, and you can't do that. You can't say, oh, they're going to want some sort of comfort.
No, I don't saying that they're definitely, but I'm saying we have to base our assumptions on what we understand and what we know, and that what we know is us. So if it's a biological organism, I think it's a fair assumption to assume they're going to want a bit more space. They're going to want somewhere to eat. They're going to want a toilet and pooping places. If they require that, I don't know. Like you said, they might not require sustenance the same way we do. We don't know, but we have to make assumptions based on what we know. But why would aliens come here? I don't think they'd come here often. They might come here occasionally. I'm actually saying, I suspect life is everywhere in the universe, but I suspect intelligent life is probably quite rare. So if an alien species found it, they would want to speak to us, help us potentially, or at the very least research us and look at us, like we go under expeditions into Africa to look at lions. They would do a similar sort of thing. They'd be interested to come and have a look.
Yeah, definitely.
But I do think 9 times out of 10 or 99 times out of 100, they would send a drone. They wouldn't send an actual biological organism. Greys might be a drone. They might be a robot, for want of a better term. So when we see small craft, those might just be drones. Maybe when we're seeing the bigger craft, these V-shaped or anything, large cigar-shaped objects, maybe those are motherships, and maybe those are the ones that actually have beings on them.
Yeah.
There could even be cruise ships. This could be a holiday resort. Go Earth. Go look at the Earthlings.
Never thought of that.
We do it.
Fantastic. Oh,
Again,
we're
I
going
know.
to Earth. We're going to Earth for
Yeah.
summer. Yes.
Let's go see the savages. These idiots still have combustion engines. Let's go look at those morons.
Oh,
You know?
fantastic.
We would do it though, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
I know you said don't think in human terms.
No, but yeah, we would.
But
Yeah.
if it was the other way around, there'd be cruise ships going.
Yeah.
Look at the alien world.
Well, look at. If
Lizard.
I could turn that, there's snowflakes like that big, mate.
Yeah, we had it this morning, and I'm really cold, so I'm assuming it's really snowing outside again now as well.
Oh shit! What was I going to say? Bloody snow put me off.
Well, I was talking about cruise ships and going on holiday to the alien world.
Yeah, no, it's gone.
Ah, well. All right. Well, I think that's a possibility. And I think one we didn't mention, Santa Claus saw the Phoenix Lights. Kurt Russell, not Kurt Douglas. Still not Kurt Douglas. Even when you text me yesterday saying it was Kirk Douglas, no, it wasn't. Kurt Russell. It was Santa.
So, that's quite crazy. So just explain that. He was flying his son in for I think a date or something. His son was having or party or whatever, and
his little Cessna, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he saw the lights, and you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, that's a bit odd. What's that?" And sort of said to his son, and his son's like, "What is that?" And then sort of getting closer, and he radioed into control and said, "Look, the area is not clear. We've got aircraft in this position." And they said, "Oh no, there's nothing there." And he's like, "Well, there is, because I can see it with my eyes, and my son can see it." He was told to land anyway, so he landed, dropped his son off, and got back in the plane and went.
An unidentified pilot, according to the press cuttings, flying near an airport in Arizona with his son when he spotted 6 lights in the night sky. So he called from the aeroplane to air traffic control to say, "I'm seeing these lights here. I wasn't expecting any other planes. They're none supposed to be on my landing path. Can you tell me what's going on?" They said there are no other planes. He said, "I'm seeing 6 bright lights coming towards me." Mystery unresolved.
Except the tail number for that plane was Bonanza 2 Tango Sierra, and I was the pilot. No way. Oliver and I. Yes, take us back.
Doesn't say that in the briefing.
Oliver and I.
Or I should have read to the end.
Oliver and I were flying in. I was flying him to go see his girlfriend, and we were on approach, and I saw 6 lights over the airport in absolute uniform in a V shape, and Oliver said to me, I was just looking at him, and I was coming in. We're maybe a half a mile out, and Oliver said, "Pa, what are those lights?" And I then it kind of like came out of my reverie, and I said, "I don't know what they are." I said, he said, "Are we okay here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna call," and I reported it. And they said, "We're not painting anything. We don't show anything." I said, "Well, okay, I'm going to declare it's unidentified, it's flying, and it's 6 objects." We landed. I taxied, dropped him off, took off, went back to L.A. Never said a word. He never said a word. I never thought of it. 2 years later, Goldie is watching a television show when I came home.
Yeah.
And the show is on UFOs. But as I came home, "Hey, honey, how's it going?" Boom, and I'm kind of hearing the TV going, and I stopped and I started watching, and it was on that event. Now, that was the most viewed UFO event. Over 20,000 people saw that. And I'm watching this, and I'm feeling like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's like, why do I know this? What? And it's not clear to me. And finally, I said. Then they said a pilot reported it. A general aviation pilot reported it on landing. I'd never thought of it since then, and I said, "That was me. That was me."
Which is another reason why it wouldn't be the bloody Warthog explanation, because they would not drop flares near a major international airport.
Yeah.
They just wouldn't.
So, yeah.
Right. Well, that's me anyway, mate. I think there's probably or possibly a very mundane, boring explanation for this, and I would be gutted if it came out and we were admitted. But
No, not at all, because it
possibly
would have,
aliens.
somebody would have done it already, wouldn't they? Do you know what I mean? Gone, right, we'll put that to bed now. That was a hologram, or it was a kite, swamp gas or something.
Yeah. Swamp gas bouncing off the light of Venus during the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's
There you go. All right, mate. Thank you very much. And if you are new to either of our channels, Stranger Times or Brief History of Conspiracy or Brief History of Mystery, I can't make my mind up what to name mine. I think YouTube hates the word conspiracy. Yeah, I'm going to go with mystery.
Mystery sounds better.
And I talk more about the net. I don't talk about conspiracies anyway. I talk about all sorts. So that's a bit of a waffle. So if you are new to our channels, either Stranger Times or Mycroft Stranger, you should go with Mycroft more often. By the way, it sounds cool.
Do you know? Yeah, I know. I should. If I had a restaurant, I'd call it Mycroft's as well.
Yeah, you should push that more with yours. It's interesting. It's a good name. I was talking to my wife about it this morning, and it sounds cool. You should push it. Right, I'll do that one more time. So if you are new to our channels, either Stranger Times or A Brief History of Mysteries, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It helps us out. And
it does.
Yeah, watch my videos over and over again. I need minutes.
Hit that notification button, hit the like button, share the videos, share all the videos, and it's snowing as well.
So Merry Christmas a week ago. And
gone quick though, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, back to work on Monday.